Mississippi Hare is a 1949 Warner Brothers cartoon, and this one, it's actually quite interesting. There's something I learned about this on IMDb about how it was pulled from view at one point, which I will discuss in a moment. But this was released in 1949, directed by Chuck Jones, with a story by Michael Maltese, and we have Mel Blanc voicing Bugs Bunny and Billy Bletcher as Colonel Shuffle. And Bugs Bunny ends up on this riverboat. I won't say exactly how he gets there, but it's quite entertaining, and I rather enjoyed that aspect of it. And he comes across this Colonel Shuffle, who's a big gambler, and he challenges Bugs to various things, and it looks like Bugs is going to get himself into a bit of hot water, but at the same time, he's very clever and very crafty. Can he outsmart Colonel Shuffle? So Colonel Shuffle is basically Yosemite Sam. He looks, well, he has a very similar stature. He carries the two guns. He carries himself the same way. He's got the same aggressive attitude. He definitely reminds me a lot of Yosemite Sam. And I feel like it could have been Yosemite Sam and the narrative would have been exactly the same and it would have worked the same way. But they decided to incorporate this character, and he's very interesting. I thought he was a very fascinating character. Visually, it's a very interesting episode. The narrative didn't bother me too much. I wasn't that excited by it. I wasn't that concerned about how Bugs would get out of various situations. So I did think it was an okay cartoon that didn't really spark too many thoughts. But then I went to IMDb and I read something about it that I thought was particularly fascinating. I wasn't aware of this. It says, IMDb says, Mississippi Hare was one of 11 cartoons pulled from rotation by the Cartoon Network for its 2001 June Bugs Marathon. Due to pressure from Warner Brothers, this was in addition to the censored 11 that had been withheld from distribution with 1968, and apparently this was withdrawn from that June Bugs Marathon because of depiction of people with dark complexions and a certain idea about it being potentially offensive, to quote IMDb. I wouldn't have picked up on that. I mean, there is one particular scene where they're singing a song and Colonel Shuffle looks a particular way, and I did kind of question what they were doing and why that decision was made. But generally speaking, this cartoon did not jump out at me as being offensive or racist or having prominent negative depictions to the extent where it would have been withdrawn. So I was really surprised by that. It's not, flawless. There are stereotypes and things in this, but most cartoons of this time did. Not that it makes it okay, but it's just unusual that this particular one was kind of censored. But at the same time, it didn't really focus on that. It wasn't really, I don't think this cartoon would change anybody's opinion. That's usually why cartoons are censored, because it's racist or it depicts certain stereotypes that could make the viewer conform to those beliefs. This absolutely would not do this. And because it shows, black people picking cotton, that's fact. That happened. Like, not, they weren't making fun of these people, but as I said, there was one scene where they were both singing and dancing, and Colonel Shuffle looked a certain way that I did question. So maybe it was just a cumulative, maybe it was all of these factors. But if it is censored just because it showed black people picking cotton, that's basically saying they're censoring it because of history, which is always a bad thing. You should never censor history. You should learn from it. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like Warner Brothers are far too cautious with some things, and yet they continue to hire people who abuse their husbands. But the less said on that, the better, I think. Nevertheless, that aside, Mississippi Hare is pretty decent. I enjoyed it enough. It's never going to be one of my favourites, but I enjoyed it. I have no other strong thoughts on it. If it wasn't for that bit of information on IMDb, I would probably not have thought too much about it at all, because as I said, these things didn't jump out at me as being too severe or significant. I've seen these things in other cartoons that were never censored. But it gave me a bit more food for thought. So, happy to hear what you think about it. If you have any strong thoughts on it being pulled, I'd love to know what you think of it. With kind words, of course. Never going to be one of my favourites. Probably not one I'll watch again. But definitely not a bad cartoon.